20 years, 8 countries, 20 trophies, and only the local population to help us. Better get started. Run the intro. Welcome to Going Local. And welcome to the first club on our adventure. It's Celtic. More on them in a minute, but welcome to a brand new FM21 save with me, Mr. Grand 2, where, inspired by the Dr. Benji Classic Challenge, we've got 20 years to win some trophies, and I want 20 of them. In fact, I want the League and Main Cup in England, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Portugal, Holland, and Scotland. Plus the Champions League, the Europa League, the Super Cup, and the Club World Cup as well. But that's not all, because to add to the challenge, as we go through, we will only principally be allowed to bolster the squads that we inherit across the continent with players from the local nationalities. So while we're in charge of Celtic, we can only sign Scottish players. When we go to France, we can only sign French players. When we go to Italy, we can only sign Italian players to complement the squad that we already have, and so on and so forth. I say principally because we will also have 2 wildcards at each club we manage. One will be a player who is not of the 8 countries we'll be managing in. We can sign a player of any nationality other than those, so it could be Mexican, could be Swiss, could be Norwegian, and so on and so forth. And 2, we will also be allowed to sign 1 player who we have previously managed in the save. But those 2 wildcards will be it. Otherwise, we can only sign players of the local nationality. It's going to add to the difficulty, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. If you are excited for the new challenge, don't forget to drop a like on the video and don't forget to subscribe as well, because it could get very dramatic very quickly. So without further ado then, we are starting off in Scotland with Celtic. Why Celtic? Well, if you've watched what's happened to them in real life this season, that should be pretty apparent. Obviously, on paper, they're the dominant team in Scotland. They won the SPL 9 years in a row until this season, when everything went just a little bit wrong. It was not 10 in a row. They were hoping for 10 titles in a row. We're going to see if we can get that. But in real life, it was not just failing to win the title, but collapsing and failing to win in such an utterly spectacular fashion. I felt I had no option but to pick them. As said, on paper, should be winning this. We should be able to win the SPL and the Scottish Cup, get 2 trophies ticked off in Season 1, right? Theoretically. But these things aren't always that straightforward, as they've found out in real life. Rangers won the championship, and they did that because they've got quite a good squad. So we're going to have a fight on our hands. You'd hope we'd be able to do it. If we can, it'll be a great start. However, if we don't, then well, we're probably going to get sacked. And if we get sacked by Celtic, then that's going to be increasing the difficulty right out of the gate, because we're not going to be able to get a job in any of these other top leagues that we need to go to. And even if we do manage to win them, Celtic, very reputable team, of course, and the dominant force in Scotland for a long, long time. But in terms of how the game treats them from a sort of global perspective, their reputation, certainly the reputation of Scotland, isn't that high. So just winning the SPL and the Scottish Cup once probably isn't going to boost our reputation enough to get a top job in another league straight away. So here we go, let's get underway. Hopefully we can have a more successful season than Neil Lennon has managed. Of course, as I record this, another young English manager in the form of Eddie Howe is apparently in negotiations to take over as Celtic manager, so we've beaten them to the punch there. I was checking, the last time an English manager was in charge of Celtic was Tony Mowbray, and he didn't do very well. He didn't win anything. So hopefully that's not an omen of things to come. But obviously we've got a lot to do. We've got to do it quickly as well. We don't want to be hanging around anywhere for too long. We've got 20 trophies to win and only 20 seasons to do it. We're going to need to double up as much as we can. And this is a good opportunity to hit the ground running. SPL, Scottish Cup, tick them both off. And then everything after that should just be really easy, right? That's how these things tend to work. So the good thing is, as we go through this, we don't necessarily need to be planning longer term. We will try to, just for the sort of for the benefit of the club, but it's not going to be our biggest priority. But players expiring contracts, I mean, Karamako Dembele is someone who we want to see we can integrate into the team. We want to fulfill the objectives in the club vision of every club we're at, because otherwise we're not going to It's not going to increase our reputation. It's not going to make other clubs want to sign us. Tactical direction, we'll do that in a minute. We're going with what we know. So this is the club vision. Yeah, develop players from the club's youth system. So Dembele is going to be a part of that. We'll look at some of the other youngsters as well in a minute. Sign players to sell for a profit is required. Well, we're going to be signing some cheap Scottish players. Scottish players are not very expensive, certainly from the rest of the SPL. We want it to be the most reputable team in Scotland. Understandable, given what happened in real life. There's no margin for error. We're expected to win the league and the Scottish Cup and the League Cup as well. The League Cup isn't part of the challenge, but we will be keeping track of the sort of total trophies we win. It'll be interesting to see sort of how many we can get in total. I'm thinking and hoping we can probably get way more than 20 if we get a bit of luck on our side. And then the Champions League, they want us to reach the playoffs, so they don't even actually expect us to reach the group stage, which is, I guess, an indication of how far their expectations have fallen. But we're not going to win the Champions League, but we might have a realistic chance of winning the Europa League, which of course we do need to win, or at least going a bit far in that. So maybe it might be in our interests to lose the playoff. I don't know, we'll see. Tactically, if you've watched either of the previous two series this year, then we're going with this, at least to start with, at least as a base. We'll tweak it as we need to, but it seems quite stable. I'm not a tactical genius. I accidentally created this tactic and it worked well, so we're going to stick with it. Now we are playing on the January update, so that means that some players have of course now gone. Jeremy Frimpong was a good player. He was sold to Bayer Leverkusen. He's Dutch. We might see him in the future when we're managing in Holland. Yeah, decent right back option. Disappointed to not have him. And of course as well, Oliver Ncham has departed on loan to Marseille, much to the disappointment of Andre Villas-Boas, and to me as well, because he's a decent player. We would have liked to have had him, but if we're here next season, we can probably use him unless he will want to leave, but we shall see. But the rest of the squad is, on paper, really quite good. This should be, you'd hope, straightforward. We've got Odin Edouard. He's blooming good, and it's going to be difficult to keep him. He's already wanted by quite a lot of decent teams. Of course, we already have a decent Scottish core to the side. James Forrest, very, very solid player. Scott Brown is getting on there, slowing down, but he'll do a job. Callum McGregor, I think, is going to be the star of the side. He's pretty good. He's one of these guys who, I mean, he's wanted in the game by Arsenal. I think in real life, at some point, will probably, you'd imagine, get snapped up by a Premier League side. He's pretty good. They've got a Jetty, Julian, decent players. Ryan Christie, I really like. He's a very, very decent player on FM. And then, of course, the FM legend that is Christopher Ajer, a all-around midfield defensive dynamo who will no doubt form an impressive part of the side. Although, again, the danger with managing Celtic is a lot of your players are wanted. Some guys on loan. El Yunusi is decent. It did quite well for us in International Journeyman, if you've been watching that. John Joe Kenny on loan is actually arguably an upgrade on Frimpong, at least initially. I'm not disappointed with that. And then going further down, Tom Rogic and of course Greg Taylor, a big part of the Norwich City save we just did. Decent left back option. And David Turnbull as well, highly rated young Scottish player, is a bit weird because technically brilliant. His physicals are atrocious, extremely high potential, but I'm not sure he's ever going to necessarily reach them with physicals that are that bad. Some of the youngsters as well, Dembele we talked about. I think I'm going to move him into the first team. So yeah, lots to work with. Let's just have a sort of look and see who fits where. If there's any sort of obvious gaps for players we can bring in. Obviously, we can only sign Scottish players for the most part. We've got 2 wildcard signings, although one of them doesn't really apply because this is the first club. So I guess we could sign someone who we had at Norwich in the previous save. That's something we could potentially do, but otherwise it will be Scottish players and then 1 player from somewhere outside of the 8 countries we're going to be managing in. So goalkeeper, Craig Gordon no longer here. We've got 2 decent options in the form of Scott Bain, he's okay, good reflexes, and then Barkas, who was signed in the summer. I think probably should give it to Barkas, at least initially. Left back, Greg Taylor obviously is going to get that. Lax out on loan as well. Right back, John Joe Kenny is of course going to be the starter. Don't have a backup right back, so that's someone I'm probably going to look to bring in. Centre back, perhaps an area of weakness. Obviously Julian and Ajer are going to play. I mean, Shane Duffy on loan as well. Not my kind of centre back really. Can't pass, very slow. Probably not going to be using him too much. And then yeah, otherwise, I mean, Ajer potentially someone we could use in midfield too. So I might look to get another centre back in just for a little bit of depth, because hopefully we're going to be going deep into a lot of competitions. We'll put Ajer and Julian in there for now. Then midfield, again, I mean, this is the thing, because I think maybe Ajer would maybe fit best in here. But then I think Scott Brown anchoring the midfield makes sense. We don't really necessarily have that sort of box-to-box presence. We'll put Biton in there for now. I want to play Callum McGregor in the Mazzala role here. But yeah, midfield, potentially someone we can look to bring in there if possible. Striker, we're going to go with Edouard up front. Lee Griffiths, of course, another option, but Edouard's going to start. And then on the flanks, again, we've got some decent wingers here. Probably going to go with Forrest and Christie. We'll go with Forrest on the left-hand side now and Christie on the right. I mean, Ismaila Soro here is a decent midfield option, actually, in the defensive midfield role. So actually, we might be okay with that. I might still look to get someone else in. Turnbull can probably actually play the box-to-box role relatively well, but I think he's just too slow for me. Rogic, of course, can be sort of a backup and rotation option with McGregor. Lots of other forward options, but yeah, I'm thinking a right-back, centre-back, and then some kind of midfielder, really to replace Ncham, who kind of has just been subject to one of the weirdest transfers ever, where the manager didn't even want him and ended up losing his job because he was signed. So let's have a quick look and see just who's interested. I mean, Matt Ritchie, we could bring in Matt Phillips, Kenny McLean. I don't want Grant Hanley. We've already got Shane Duffy. It's kind of the same sort of thing. Maybe some sort of youngsters. I mean, Finley Robertson might be someone we potentially look to bring in, other youngsters like that. So there's plenty of options. Whether any of them are necessarily going to be the ones we need to bring in. We've only got 4.5 million to spend, which isn't much, but in Scotland we can probably stretch to a couple of players. 35k in the wage budget as well. We might need to be looking in some loan signings. Let's just see who we can bring in on loan, because obviously we can bring in that wildcard signing. I mean, we could apparently get Mohamed El Neni or Tom Davies. I mean, they're the kind of players that would probably do quite a decent job in the SPL. I will go away and have a look and see who we can look to bring in, and then we'll be back next time for some action, some league action. And of course, we have got the Champions League qualification throughout this. Although the way the first season's working, we are starting quite early. So I think we will come back for some action. Probably Hamilton, maybe Kilmarnock as well. We might do 2 games to kick off proceedings. Obviously, Scotland does the weird thing where you play all the teams twice and then it splits up into half and half, and then you play all the teams from the top half again. I think twice again. I'm not sure. So that will be fun. Obviously, in terms of what does the game expect? I'm imagining we are expected to be the favourites, but how much by? Well, there you go. We're not the favourites. So we can't even say we've picked the easy option according to the game. They are predicting that Rangers will win the title, of course, as was the case in real life. Let's just have a quick look at the Rangers squad. Steven Gerrard in charge, of course, and I mean, they've got some very good players. Morelos, of course, loves a red card, but good player. Ryan Kent as well. Yeah, he's going to cause issues. He's picked up some very good players, says Gerrard, as is, of course, evidenced by the fact that they did win the league in real life. And this is going to be kind of the test, really. What we need to make sure we do is not drop any points against any other teams, because there are other teams that can cause issues. Aberdeen, they're a decent side. Really, anyone on their day can cause us problems, but we need to be avoiding dropping points in any of those games. And then when it comes to playing Rangers in those Old Firm derbies, we need to be trying to at least get a point in them and hope Rangers drop points elsewhere. I'm hopeful we can do it. It's definitely not going to be as straightforward as maybe in previous FMs it has been. Rangers are back. Rangers are actually good now. But what do you think? Can we get this done in one season? Can we tick Scotland off in one go? I'm not so sure. Rangers, yeah, they're looking quite good. But anyway, let me know what you think down below. Make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe as well so you don't miss the rest of the save. And I will see you next time to kick off the SPL campaign with some new faces in the squad as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.